The British colonization in India brought some significant changes in Indian architecture. The use of arches, brackets, pillars, and so on changed the style of Indian architecture in many ways. The Greek pillars like Etruscan, Doric, Ionic, Corinthian, composite pillars influenced the buildings in many ways. The church architectures like Roman Catholic domes or Gothic style is also seen here. Sometimes even European and Indian techniques merged to form some unique structures. Now let us see some buildings of Calcutta, Bombay and Madras where we shall see the colonial influence in Indian architecture. The former capital of India for many years, Calcutta, or nowadays called Kolkata, has many interesting buildings with colonial influence. We shall see 6 of them now. The Victoria Memorial. Built in memory of Queen Victoria, the Empress of India, the Victoria Memorial is one of the most recognizable structures in Calcutta as well as India. It was built between 1906 and 1921. But if we notice a little closely at its style of constructions, we shall see that colonial styles like the brackets pillars are here, but we also notice that the structure is actually a mixture of Indian and European structures. How? Let us examine. If we look closely, the structure is inspired by the Taj Mahal, a dome in the middle and the 4 pillar looking structures on 4 sides. That is surely inspired from the Indian, especially Islamic structures. The St. Paul's Cathedral. One of the most prominent churches of India, the St. Paul's Cathedral is a marvelous example of colonial influence. The church was opened in 1847 and is based on the Gothic style of churches in Europe, like the Notre Dame Cathedral of Paris. Gothic arches are the most notable features. In 2018, the cathedral appeared in a stamp of the Vatican with Mother Teresa. The General Post Office. The General Post Office of Calcutta, or the GPO, is the most important philatelic center in entire eastern India. It is the heaven for the stamp collectors of West Bengal. The building once used to be a fort of the British, a portion of which was destroyed by Siraj-ud-Dowla in 1756. In the view of some historians, the Black Hole tragedy took place in this building. Nevertheless, the GPO holds a marvelous dome which is clearly coming from the Roman Catholic styles of Europe. The huge structure is marked by brilliant pillar combination. The pillars used here are Ionic pillars. The present building was built in 1864. The Howrah Railway Station. The spectacular Howrah Railway Station is a significant symbol of European structure in India. The large towers, the long verandas, huge clocks, arches, and porches make a fine piece of engineering. It was opened in 1854. The Writers' Building. Built in 1777, the Writers' Building was the office of the Viceroy of India. Before that, in the early East India Company era, the writers of the company would work here, hence the name Writers' Building. After the independence, this house became the secretariat of the Chief Minister of West Bengal. This is a pure Western architecture, with gliding roofs, pillars, and arches. This building is one of the finest examples of colonial architecture in India. The Calcutta High Court. Established on 1st July 1862, the Calcutta High Court was back then the Supreme Court of India. It is indeed a majestic piece of architecture. It is a Gothic structure, no doubt, and has a lot of similarities with many churches of Europe, like the Canterbury Cathedral in Britain. Arched windows, gliding roofs, and other features make it the wonderful European edifice standing on Calcutta. Bombay, now known as Mumbai, was the major center of the British in West India. We shall look at four important colonial structures here. The Gateway of India. The Gateway of India, built in 1911 to welcome King George V in India, is a unique architecture considering it is a mixture of Indian and colonial structures. The concept of a gateway with such a big arch is coming from Europe, like we see in the Arch de Triomphe in France. But the arch itself is an Indian arch, like the one we find in the Rumi Darwaza of Lucknow. And the pillars are also coming from the Indian structures, like the towers at the mosques of Ahmedabad. The Rajabai Clock Tower. In 1869, Sir George Gilbert Scott built a clock tower by the name of Rajabai Clock Tower. Clearly, this architecture is a Gothic architecture. The concept of a clock tower itself is a European architecture, the most famous being the Big Ben in London or the Elizabeth Tower. And the Gothic and Venetian style makes it all the more fascinating. The Bombay High Court. The Bombay High Court is one of the finest court buildings of the country. The structure has an absolutely imposing design. But this is most certainly not an Indian design. The court structure is a pure European building. Gliding roof, elongated spires, and other features make it a wonderful European structure. It was built in 1862. The Victoria Terminus. Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminus, formerly known as the Victoria Terminus, is the most famous railway station in India. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and is just remarkable. It is rather incredible that this Gothic architecture combined with a fabulous dome and Victorian turrets, this imposing structure is not a palace but a railway station. It was built in 1878. The main port and business center in South India during the British era, Madras is also the seat of some remarkable landmarks. We shall look at three of them. The Madras High Court. The fabulous High Court of Madras was established in 1862. The building is surprisingly not a fully colonial structure like the courts of Calcutta and Bombay. The structure is mostly resembling an Indian palace, with Indian domes and chhatris, combining with some conspicuous British influence like the brackets and arches of the Gothic structures. The Ripon Building. Named after Lord Ripon, the Ripon Building was built in 1913 by G.T.S. Harris. It was the seat of the Madras Presidency. Pillars, arches, clocks, all these types are significant signs of the European influence. The Madras Railway Station. The Madras Railway Station is one of the most interesting stations in India. It was built in 1872, and gliding roofs, clocks, arches are the salient European features of this impressive architecture in Madras. We have analyzed 13 spectacular buildings in the three presidencies of colonial India, which represent the rich colonial architectural heritage. Of course, there are countless other buildings like these, but we have in our project discussed about only a handful but very representative structures. Thank you.